blesses everyone. Love and light to you all. Today is the 2-year anniversary, unfortunately, of Brandon Rodriguez's death in Rikers Island. Since then, we've seen more death and more violence. July was the deadliest day in the past several years, the deadliest month, for people losing their life on Rikers. But I want to make sure we know what we're dealing with. And so several council members visited Rikers recently. They have a different point of view of us, and I'm sure it's been said here, but it's important to repeat. They described it as a great environment. And so what we are dealing with are people who believe, for black and brown primarily people who are awaiting trial, 80% of which Rikers Island is a great environment. So if you deal with people who believe
Rikers... Community Engagement Day on Rikers Island. It brings together incarcerated women nearing release and their families.
As CBS 2's Jennifer Bisram shows us, it keeps inmates connected to their loved ones and reduces violence in jail.
Hugs and happiness filled the gym at the women's facility on Rikers Island Tuesday. CBS 2 cameras exclusively capturing emotional reunions between female inmates and their families.
It's like a piece of your heart being in jail.
Michelle Neto visited her daughter at the Department of Corrections Community Engagement Day.
I look forward to this day like it was Christmas. I couldn't wait for it to get here. I miss her. You don't get to hold her and hug her.
Leela Neto was one of 10 women chosen to take part in the 4-hour carnival-themed Family Day. With supervision, kids were able to play games like Connect 4 and darts with their moms and aunts who were serving time. The incarcerated women were even able to have sit-down lunches with their loved ones that included pizza and popcorn and dance together to their favorite songs.
This is the first time I've seen her in person and been able to, like, a contact visit. Normally it's behind glass.
Neto was charged with larceny earlier this year. What have you learned being in here for a year?
Patience.
The 31-year-old, who has been working at the facility's tailor shop, participates in several programs and received food handler training. She's expected to be released in November.
I made some mistakes, but in here I've rehabilitated enough to where I say I'm ready to leave now.
DOC says there are currently 368 women in custody on Rikers Island. Only a handful were able to participate.
They are handpicked by programs. They have to participate in the programs that are happening and kind of aiding that rehabilitation. And then they have to be infraction-free, so incident-free for the last 30 to 60 days.
Organizers say the program keeps violence down in jails, maintains strong family bonds, creates that human element, and leaves behind a positive impact that will help the women even after they're released.
It reminds you what you're, keeping a straight path for, keeping your head, out of trouble for.
The Department of Correction puts this program on 3 times a year for the women who are incarcerated here on Rikers Island. They say it keeps the women motivated and focused not just on their family, but on their release. On Rikers Island, Jennifer Bisram, CBS.
Years ago, an inmate at the Boulder County Jail gouged his eyes out while in a mental health crisis, and he sued the sheriff and the jail, claiming they left his mental health untreated and could have been prevented.
A settlement was announced today, and the county must pay millions. Denver 7's Colette Bordelon caught up with him and his family, who say the money falls short of true justice.
I've pretty much been asymptomatic recently, and I feel like I'm recovering.
Ryan Partridge lives with schizophrenia.
A perfect storm of things just coming together at the wrong time.
That time was in 2016 when he was in the Boulder County Jail.
Until I blinded myself.
His eyes were brown.
They're not anymore.
Turning blue now.
Like his dad, Richards.
I'm really Ryan's younger brother,
The Partridges are able to laugh, but it's been a long road.
We're lucky to have Ryan here. There's lots of people who lose their loved one in this situation.
They filed a lawsuit that says in December 2016, Ryan experienced a deep, severe schizophrenic psychosis and that he had previously harmed himself while in the Boulder County Jail. It also says he had a history of refusing to take medication. Attorneys claim the jail simply left his psychosis untreated.
Called me and told me that Ryan had blinded himself and he was in the hospital, but they thought maybe they could save one of his eyes, which ended up not being true. And of course, I started crying, and I said, "Oh my God."
The Partridges were paid 2 settlements, totaling to just over $2.5 million.
The only remedy they can do is money. They can't give Ryan his eyesight back.
In a statement, the sheriff's office says they don't believe any of the staff involved were at fault or violated the law. It continues to say they employ a highly trained medical team that has protocols aimed at preventing self-harm. However, the jail cannot offer the same level or scope of treatment as a hospital.
Some people probably view it as that I did it to myself, and we also were fighting uphill against qualified immunity for a lot of the people in our lawsuit.
The statement from the sheriff's office says they now host a jail-based competency restoration program. It says the county will continue to advocate for a better state system for mental health treatment.
It's the same every time.
But the Partridges don't believe enough has been done, specifically when it comes to how mental health is treated inside jail.
We did everything we could. Our hands are tied.
The family says they'll keep doing what they've always done.
We take care of each other.
And they plan on pushing for change inside Colorado's jails. Colette Bordelon, Denver 7.
And one of the biggest concerns for the Partridges is solitary confinement at the Boulder County Jail. And a spokesperson from the sheriff's office says they do have some inmates in single, non-shared cells with limited time outside of them, and they call it restrictive housing, saying they periodically review and modify their policies to ensure they're in line with best practices. The most recent update on their policy was last month.
Nonprofit organization here in Omaha that focuses on restoring relationships between young people, their families, and our community, and particularly young people who are justice involved. What that means is our youth are on juvenile probation. So we will work with youth on juvenile probation and their families, and we'll work with them together here on this campus so they can stay connected while they heal. Radius's mission is to empower youth and families to meet their full potential. And we'll do that through community engagement and trauma-informed education, residential services, in-home family services, and our unique outpatient relationship with Charles Drew Health Center, where our young people will receive both physical and behavioral health care.
This is the area where our youth will have the opportunity to have some recreation and get outside. We're excited about this space. It's a blank canvas right now. So they have the opportunity where they may be able to have gardening, musical concerts. This is where we can have the opportunity to partner with the community, bring them in, and inspire our youth to know what's going on and how they can be a part of our greater Omaha community.
The judge citing violent and unacceptable conditions inside the facility. Though a ruling was made, this is not the end of the saga between the city and federal authorities when it comes to who will run the prison.
Eyewitness News reporter Tom Nergevant live in Lower Manhattan with more. Tom.
David, a lot of tension in that courtroom today. The judge, though, saying she will hear arguments on this, and that is the first step toward federal control of Rikers Island, a step she says has to be taken for the safety of inmates and the people who work there. 7 inmates have died at Rikers this year. There were 8 stabbings just last month. Close Rikers now! A big crowd of protesters outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. They say Rikers Island is simply too far gone for reform. They want it closed.
What I want the administration to do is stop viewing this as an attack. What I want you to do is view this as a way out to make everything better.
In court today, the monitor appointed to oversee the notorious jail made it clear conditions could hardly be worse, and Judge Laura Taylor Swain agreed, calling the current state of affairs tragic and unacceptable. The city comptroller says since January of 2022, at least 26 inmates have died in custody at the city's jails. But at Rikers, Corrections Commissioner Lou Molina told the court things are significantly better than at the apex of this crisis. And that, he said, is undeniable. Their words that follow a visit to the jail this week by the mostly conservative members of City Council's Common Sense Caucus. Rikers Island, they say, is improving rapidly under the current administration.
All my colleagues screaming about closing Rikers, where are you going to put the individuals?
What is the monitor there to do? Let the commissioner do his job, let our mayor do his job.
Comments that anger these activists, aware that there were 4 recent stabbings at the jail over the span of 4 days.
It does make me really mad. The reason why is because people are dying. Every single human being deserves a right to live.
So a major step toward receivership for Rikers, but the judge stressed today it is not unavoidable. She suggests the city use the intervening time between court dates to show a real commitment to transparency and reform. That gives them until the end of November.
Rikers Island and who should run the jails. Prosecutors and advocates want the feds to take over, but the mayor says that he's up to the job of fixing things.
CBS 2 political reporter Marcia Kramer here now with the latest. Marcia.
Maurice and Christine, Rikers Island was on trial in the Foley Square today. Federal Judge Laura Taylor Swain asked to decide whether time's up for the city of New York or whether Mayor Adams should turn over the keys to the lockup to someone else. Community activists rallied in Foley Square as a federal judge listened to arguments pro and con about two proposals, holding the city in contempt for not fixing the conditions at the Rikers Island jail complex and taking Mayor Adams out of the mix and giving control of the jails to an outside receiver.
There is broad consensus across the city that Rikers Island is a failure, that the mayor of the city of New York no longer has the ability to run Rikers Island.
At the hearing, the Legal Aid Society, which represents detainees, said the long-standing issues at Rikers that go back more than a decade call out for new blood. Recent reports by the federal monitor, Steve Martin, have painted a picture of total chaos, poor facilities, and dysfunction. Comptroller Brad Lander was among the first to say, let a receiver run the jails. But he says if the judge does it, she has to make sure there is a clear plan for the first 100 days.
They need a 100 days list, and maybe that's getting people to their medical appointments, and maybe that's continuing to reduce the number of correction officers out sick.
Mayor Adams has made clear in the past that he thinks he's making progress in both reducing violence and reducing staff sick days.
I am the best person in this administration to finally turn around the Department of Correction.
Earlier this week, members of the City Council's Common Sense Caucus toured Rikers and said that things are changing for the better. Queens Councilman Robert Holden comparing things to a visit in September 2021.
Complete turnaround, night and day. There's a great atmosphere in there. So for anyone, any federal monitor to say that the conditions haven't improved, they're not telling the truth. They're lying.
Now, the judge moved one step closer to holding the city in contempt and appointing a receiver, giving both sides until November to submit motions. She also said she's not given up on the city, which she says has made some progress, just not enough. Corrections Commissioner Louis Molina said he's still holding hope to convince the judge that he can turn things around. Legal Aid said they will argue for a federal takeover. Guys?
Thank you, Marcia.
Hearing arguments this afternoon on whether or not the jail should be taken over by the federal government. Several council members have toured the facility this week to get a first-hand look at the conditions inside. Yesterday, Council member Farrell Lewis and Marjorie Velasquez visited the jail. Earlier this week, members of the Common Sense Caucus toured the facility, and they had this to say after their visit.
This dilapidated infrastructure there that was vulnerable, they were being converted into weapons. That's not happening anymore.
This facility is filled with 6,200 of the most violent criminals in the city of New York. Our corrections officers are doing the very, very best that they can.
Having somebody from Oklahoma tell New Yorkers what to do, I mean, that's just incompetence.
So meanwhile, the Department of Correction is facing another legal battle. The city's independent watchdog group, the Board of Correction, is suing over access to surveillance video from inside the jail. Henry Robinson spent 3 months locked up on Rikers Island and says the jail needs to close. And he's not alone. Henry joins us this morning along with Melanie Dominguez, the lead organizer of the Cattell Center for Equity, Health, and Justice. So thanks to both of you for being here this morning.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah. Well, Henry, I want to start with you because you've been inside Rikers. And now you hear the correction commissioner saying that violent incidents, deaths are all down in Rikers. You heard the council members saying that they feel that there have been improvements. When you hear that, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts on it is that I know that they may be being a little deceptive, being the fact that before this even occurred, this pandemic, all this stuff happening, when I was there, this wasn't even happening, and it was bad then. And we was trying to, rally the people in the prison to actually you know, speak to the officers. We called 311, many different things I did myself. We even had, ourselves, we had altercations with officers because they don't mind getting physical with you to enforce their word and their regulations, even if, you know, they're in the wrong or not. You know what I'm saying?
So you're basically saying you have doubts that it's getting any better?
I doubt it's going to get better unless it's some type of assistance coming from the receivership.
So we know that Rikers is slated to close, Melanie, and there's this whole idea of the federal receivership, whether or not it should take over. The mayor says, give us the chance to fix it. Has the city been given too many chances to move the jail in the right direction, and do you believe the federal receivership will make any kind of difference?
Yeah, absolutely. The city has been given many chances. These federal court hearings have been happening since November of last year. And up until this point, at a special conference that the federal judge Laura Taylor Swain convened in June, that's when it was the breaking point. It was like too many people had passed away under the Department of Corrections in New York City, and that's when the judge basically stated that she no longer believes that she no longer has faith that this administration is able to address the conditions that are unfolding at Rikers Island and open up the doors to allow the U.S. Attorney General and the Legal Aid Society to make their cases on federal receivership for today's special hearing.
Can you help some folks understand what a federal receivership could do that the city cannot do?
Absolutely. So a federal receivership, just to kind of give a little bit more context, is appointed by the federal court. So the judge will have a say on who the receiver is, and it's an independent body. One of the things that they can do is improve conditions at Rikers Island to save lives. They have the authority to fire and hire people to make sure that they're reforming the city jails right now. But to us, it is clear that the city and the mayor must take action in closing down Rikers, decarceration, and investing in our communities. That's always something that's going to remain under the control of the mayor. Yes. But until Rikers Island is shut down, we need the federal courts to appoint an independent receiver to improve conditions, because people are dying. Yeah. 26 people have died since the mayor took office, and that is unacceptable. And that's evident that the conditions at Rikers Island are life-threatening.
Yeah, and more will die if nothing is changed.
Yeah, and you're fighting for transparency. Have you met with the commissioner at all?
Well, I haven't myself got to meet with the commissioner, but I plan on to, just because of my own personal experiences and just knowing that every voice count. Every voice count. Every person. It don't even matter if you've been to prison or not. The thing is that at any time, due to how the world is, you know, ran, we could be taken. I could be accused of something I didn't do. Like, you know, just me defending. Yes. If a person was next to me and I defended them, said this person wasn't at there. He wasn't at that crime scene. He was with me. They'll take me too. Just because I said I was with this person. And even if it was just one person, assailant, they'll take both of us. And you know that's wrong.
And to go to what you're saying about the transparency, they've kind of changed how they report the deaths right now, and so the public and media are not really fully aware of what's happening inside. But Melanie, we only have a short time left here. The hearings are getting away this afternoon at 2 p.m., but the decision may not come until sometime next year, right? So what can be done in the meantime?
I think right now what we're focusing our energy around is just organizing our city, making sure that more elected officials come out and support a receivership. As you know, Public Advocate Jumaane Williams introduced a resolution at City Hall. That resolution has now 17 co-sponsors, so 17 council members are supporting it. And we're going to be having a rally today ahead of the hearing at Foley Square at 1 p.m. to urge the courts to take immediate action, but to continue our demand to have the mayor shut down Rikers Island immediately, because we cannot wait any longer.
All right, Melanie, Henry, thanks so much for coming on.
Yes, thank you too. And could I say one thing? We would like to urge everyone to come down to Foley Square at 1 o'clock today, if it's possible, to help us in what we're doing and trying to make happen for individuals that can't do it for themselves and that are dying. Thank you and appreciate it.
Yeah, you see it all there on your screen.